All right, guys. I got Eric T. Red in the house and I got Corey in the house. All right. So buckle up, people. The episode starts right now. What's up, E? What's up, Corey?
Hey, Jason.
All right, guys. So check it out.
Hey,
So for a lot of you people that follow the Sabby Sabs podcast or on the chat, we know what Eric looks like, but this is the first time we're seeing Corey. Big up Corey. And for everybody watching this, I've got to give the people what they want. Dun, 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 dun. This is episode 159. I am Jason DeBias. That is Eric T. Red and his sidekick, the Batman and Robin of the 11 Demands, Corey. Welcome, boys.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for having us. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, man.
what he said.
So we are going to talk about a lot, which is included but not limited to your jam, which is the 11 Demands. But I was really in the dark about the whole no kings thing. I was, I'm a volleyball coach and I coach privately. And I took the year off from coaching. So when someone calls me for private lessons, that's the only coaching I've done all year. So, and I've been doing color commentary. I've been traveling around, Seaside, Motherlode, Honolulu, Hawaii, doing broadcasting. So I wanted to take more time to do that. So what happens, just like Corey, who has a real job, right? Sometimes work happens and everybody's like, did you see the No Kings protest? And I'm just like, uh. So let's get a first take. Let's start with Eric. What was your thoughts about the first Kings protest and maybe some of the stuff we were hearing from media, the real, the fake, the other? The floor is yours, Eric.
Sure. Well, one of the things that I've been seeing on Twitter that I would definitely echo is where are the demands, right? It's like you got all these people in the streets, you got all these speakers, you got all this stuff. But what exactly are they asking for? What are they saying besides Trump bad? And, we can have our opinions one way or the other on Trump, but it's like, what exactly are they asking for? And I think that's, the core problem. Um, and if anything, if something good comes out of it, it'll be that people are noticing that. I've been seeing this on Twitter on people that I've been trying to get this message out to, saying well, we need a movement based on clear demands, and they're kind of like, I don't know, it's like it doesn't resonate. But now maybe they're noticing that it's this big establishment co-opted so-called protest with no demands. Maybe now we can start getting this message out that it starts with demands. You know, if you had the Frederick Douglass thing, power concedes nothing without a demand. It's, why would they give us anything if we're not asking for anything, right? So that was my first take, that it's pretty lame, in that aspect. It's basically a Democratic Party operation, and neither of these corporate parties are going to save us. And so that would be my first take is, where are the demands? What are the demands?
I gotta give it up to my man. That's Eric T. Red. Sorry, I got your website up there. Um, hey, Corey, you're awfully quiet over there. Tell me.
Yeah. Yeah, I would echo that. I think without demands, it's pretty performative. I know, the other day Sabrina on the show pointed out in the Atlanta metro area, which is an area which is predominantly Black American, the No Kings protest was like 90% white. Now, what that kind of indicates to me is it's a little bit of the like PMC kind of like brunch NPR crowd. And so I think that's what happens when you have a movement without demands, is you don't really have any clear rallying cry. And so it just becomes something that people do for, their Instagram or because, hey, whatever. And it just becomes performative without that. So, yeah, I really echo the need for demands. And I just don't think any, action, be it against Trump or against the genocide or against, anything that we're dealing with here can really be taken seriously without that kind of backing.
Yeah, I look, when I heard about No Kings, right? And this is a few months in the making, right? Because the whole idea of No Kings, you're not a king, you don't get to do whatever. I I've been the victim during the Biden administration and the Obama administration and Trump of censorship. You know, my YouTube, like Meta, I don't know if Meta and Google are the same thing, but what happened to me in 2021 happened the same day within the same hour. And they came down like a jackhammer. And maybe at the end of this podcast, I'll tell you the story about how I saved all this and how I got the first written apology in the history of the internet from YouTube. Like, I mean, I timestamped it. I've been looking for it for the podcast, just, you know, to bring that receipt. But so, sorry, back to the No Kings. So for me, when I saw No Kings, and I'm like, so if you take away the king, what are you replacing it with? The aristocrats? Are you replacing it with the a two-family patriarchy, which we've experienced a better part of your life, Corey, right? Probably all of your life, Corey, and a better part of my life and Eric T's life, right? We've always had a Clinton running or being elected, and we've always had a Bush. So pretty much since 1990 or 88, when HW was vice president to president, to Clinton for 8 years, to Bush for 8 years. Obama was very much Clinton, a mixture of Clinton and Bush. Clinton running again. Is that what we want? Is that, I mean, were they waiting this whole time for Trump to get elected for them to revert back to this two-family patriarchy or aristocracy, or as Eric would say, two-party duopoly?
I think it's kind of this thing where people have, a majority of people have realized that the presidency is BS and the president is BS, but some people haven't quite made that like next connection to like the billionaires that really, you know, are the puppet masters behind that president. So I think it's kind of like just this lost anger, this whole, oh, they know the president's BS and they don't want him, and especially for Trump. But you know, again, there's really not that further answer, which is kind of what you're saying of where do we go from there. And again, I think that ties into the need for the demand of what it is we're looking for. And, you know, we have general ideas of what that is, you know, primarily, means and production and whatnot that works for the workers and the working class. But again, that's kind of up to debate and why this needs to be a collaborative effort from people working together in these demands.
Well, to me,
one of the things I just wanted
please.
to hit on, Jason, when you said Google and Meta, are they the same thing, right? And yes, they're technically different companies, different corporations, different boards and whatnot, but they're the same in that they work for the same interests, right? It's about interests, and there are two sets of interests out there, is what I would posit. There's the interest of the top 0.1%, the billionaires, and there's the interests of the rest of us, the 99%. And the key question I would posit you need to ask when you're evaluating any corporation, any politician, is which of those sets of interests are they working for? And when it comes to Google and Meta, they're working for the billionaires because they're owned by the billionaires.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, who are the biggest stock, shareholders? They own and run these companies. And so when Google and Meta are whacking you at the same time, it's not surprising because they are not working in our interests.
The same day, like within the same hour.
Mm-hmm.
This is February 18th, 2022. Mm-hmm. This is when
memo
this
went out, huh?
Yeah, just boom, just everything. My Option Podcast channel on Facebook wiped away completely. NYVarsitySports restricted. YouTube shadow banned. Like it was heartbreaking because
got on the bad list.
No, because as producers and editors, right, you put like hours and hours of work to get for someone to see the video and gets like 2 views, and I'm like, I got 30,000 subscribers. How did this? Are you trying to say?
Did that start when you? So I'm not sure kind of when you shifted to politics too, because you're a sports guy. Obviously, right. So you're a sports guy and a politics guy. So did this kind of action happen kind of when you shifted into politics, or how did that kind of work out?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. In fact, let's jump into that because we're all buckled in. But I wanted to read Lex's comment. Lex said, "Demands or ask are part of any discussion. If you're unhappy, it's not enough to say I hate this. So replace it." That's right. Erase. Replace, embrace, new face. Switch, TLC reference. So, all right. So here's the thing. The Option Podcast, for Everybody who follows me, you already know who I am. So bear with me, but don't get undressed as I indulge in the newer crowd here. It started as a volleyball podcast. It's my wheelhouse. But I had an agenda. I thought that I could use sports, entertainment, health and wellness, and current events to not spoon feed people answers, but present the right question. And once the right question is presented, you, me, Eric, and the audience watching us, we can all answer it together. It's a Brechtian thing we talked about yesterday, Eric, a collective change, you know? So sports, it was all sports just to build it, because that's my wheelhouse. I got to get the Olympic gold medalists, get the NCAA champs, get this person. I'm a theater performer, had a couple of people up for the Tonys, and built this brand. And then one day I was very, very disturbed about Joe Rogan, like apologizing for COVID misinformation. And I made an episode, my first ever fly solo episode, no guest, and it was called "Free Speech is Not Popular Speech." And I was trying to emphasize that popular speech doesn't need protection. Unpopular speech is, right. If you've never been disgusted in your life by free speech, if it never made you throw up in your mouth, you didn't fight hard. You never fought hard enough for it. You didn't fight hard. You just didn't fight. You never fought for it. If you never felt that way, you probably never fought for it. So it was twofold. It was, I had a clip, and just like you guys do as producers, I had a little Jon Stewart window fact checking as I go through everything Rogan said. And I'm like, no, well, for YouTube purposes, it prevents transmission and contraction, of course, and it's safe and effective. Erica, if you haven't had your 9th booster, you can go to hell. So clearing out the YouTube thing. And so I went through one at a time, talking about transmission, this, and what he said into relation to that. And I pointed out where he was right, and I pointed out where at the time he was wrong. And then the second part of the podcast was Whoopi Goldberg talking about, Nazis and Jews. And she made this reference, it's white people killing white people, right? And she got canceled for that. And I was upset that they canceled her, not because she was right, she was wrong. But I was upset that it was a conversation, because somewhere out there, where I grew up on Flatbush Avenue, there's a black kid that's going to raise his hand and say, teach. How do we know which white people were which, right? How do we know which one were the Nazis or whatever, right? And to us, the answer is obvious, right? And there's my ESPN moment. But to people out there who don't know better, it was a teaching moment that got lost. So Eric, you're a producer guy. Here's the analytics. It was only 21,000 views, right? But it got 14,000 through plays. So through players are people that listen from beginning to the end. And it was 66%, which it doesn't happen on the internet, period, right? Like if you got a good podcast, 15%, right? Or close to 21 out of every 5. And if it's a long form podcast, you're screwed. So I had this ridiculous number, and I think it might have set off all the alarm bells. Like, why is this guy getting this? He's doling out misinformation, even though
and you probably hit certain COVID keywords.
Yeah. So
bad words.
Yeah. So let me finish, because I want to get to the end, not the journey of being depressed and being like, oh, I'm doing all this work for nothing. I might as well sell spatulas or something, farm apples. But so what happened was I got another strike, and they said we go by the guidelines of the CDC and the WHO. So, and for the first time, I was allowed a written appeal and not a push button appeal where they could just stamp rejected. So what happened was I said, this is a link to Walensky saying it no longer prevents, transmission or whatever. This is a link from the WHO saying that for the boosters, last year's cocktail for this year's mutation, and as I quote, not sustainable and not appropriate. So not only did I not violate the guidelines of YouTube, I echoed the sentiments. And then I skipped 2 lines and I said, apologize. Because I did it because I thought I was just going to be rejected. Apologize, ... 10 minutes later, I get an email back. You get an email 10 minutes later, you're like, that's a computer saying rejected, and they're going to go play basketball. And they're like, we got your appeal, and we profusely apologize. We understand it's a difficult time. And I'm just like, these people are telling me they're sorry. I got a sorry from YouTube. So that was the story, which I'll edit out on this because it's not as relevant. But getting back to what you were saying, and this leads to the question. And You're gonna love this, Eric, because yesterday we were talking about Ghostbusters. Corey, Ghostbusters. In the beginning of the movie, there's a ghost, a librarian, and you got like Bill Murray, Harold Ramis. Wow, actual paranormal activity. This is amazing. This is amazing. And then Bill Murray says, "So what do we do?" And they all looked at each other, and he's like, "Can I talk to you guys over here? What do we do?" So now, let's take that and apply that to the protest. So my question to you two is, do you think this was a strategic just to wow people and not necessarily ask about demands? Because I think the whole spectacle, just like Ghostbusters, is the whole thing that they're seeing a real ghost, right? They were so wowed by it, they didn't think ahead. Where I think on this protest, was it something that they were innocently did not think ahead, or was it just a spectacular event?
I think you need to kind of take a step back and look at what's happening in the world and the society now in general. And, things are coming apart, right? Things are like really not going well in a lot of different ways. And you've got millions and millions of people around the world in the US, deeply unhappy, deeply frustrated with the status quo, with Israel, Gaza, with the economy in general. And so the corporate establishment has to react to that in some fashion, because if they don't, it'll just keep building and building, and then you might get something that looks more like a real revolution, or even just real change. And so what they'll do is then the establishment, the system, the political system, whatever you want to call it, will allow for some version of protest. And so what they've created with this is a version of protest that lets people get in there and yell and get excited, but has no real effect, right? I mean, what does no kings change? What is it going to change? You're hard pressed to identify or see anything. And so, you have this throughout the political system and through, the whole, society system in general. You have these things that act kind of as pressure release valves. And so I would identify No Kings as kind of that, something had to happen. I mean, something has to happen in some fashion. That's how I would frame it.
Okay.
Just smiling because I was looking at the chat, and all one same also said No Kings is designed to be a relief valve. So they said it before you.
Yeah.
Kind of like a psst,
All one's cool.
right? Let the
all
air
one's
out.
one of the peeps.
So in other words, to let the air out so the bubble doesn't explode, right? Like,
Yep. And to prevent any real to prevent real change. It's something to allow for something, but not something. It's like Nancy Pelosi and the crew kneeling in kente cloth, right? It's like, look, we did this thing for you. Okay, what's the real effect? They're hoping no one asks. What's the real effect? What did he do? But look, we did something for you.
It's also kind of like
celebrate the crumbs.
Yeah, it's also kind of unclear like who really is behind it. So this is the second wave of the No Kings protest. So there was one during the summer, and then but as far as like the organizers go, yeah, it's kind of unclear, which does also make you wonder kind of who is behind the organizing. I think it's also good to just put out that I think for the majority of people that are just regular people not involved in the organization, I think it's well intentioned but not effective. But as far as like who's pulling the strings behind No Kings, I think that's definitely suspect, and not sure. There definitely could be very real implications on people just sheepdogging people.
Right. Well, for me personally, I think I don't know who said this. I think Frederick Douglass said, "I'll support anyone who does good and oppose anyone who does bad." Right. So whoever's behind it, like if I thought this was a noble cause, and I have yet to see any evidence that suggests said nobility, I'd be behind it. And it's not like, like there's no good pizza joint in California, right? But if I find a good pizza joint and it's like, oh, the guy serving me pizza voted for Trump, I'm like, man, kiss my ass. I got a pizza joint. So there's got to be a level to me that there's got to be a level of social maturity where we all agree there are some hard lines, there are some hard stops. To me, like ra- er, to me, overt racism is one of the worst things. Not bigotry, racism. Like I'm a bigot. I'm a bigot against midgets or tiny people. I forget. I don't know what they're called. Right. I'm a bigot against clowns. I'm scared of clowns. So but yeah. So I get what you're saying. So this no kings thing. I really like what Eric said in the video, and I'm actually inclined to just play the video. It's only 2 minutes, so because the way you introduced it, you're like, no kings, no monarchs, no rulers, and yet no demands. So I
Hmm.
actually have written screenshots of the 11 demands, but with your permission, I'd be entirely without it. I think I'd like to just play the 2 minute clip that that Eric had. It was so audience bear with me. It was 2 minutes 51 seconds, but I promise you it is worth it. Here we go. DJ spin that.
Is the latest 11 Demands Substack post, which actually just went up like an hour ago. So this was something that Jason, whose podcast we're going to be on, actually said, I think, during the Zoom hangout. He said that he likes Sabby's show because it doesn't put all this focus on left versus right fighting. It talks about up versus down. So here we go. 11 Demands. Forget left versus right. It's up versus down. And we got, the D's and the R's here in the media. There's a fight happening in America, but it's not the one the corporate media would have you believe it is. They want you to think it's about red versus blue and Democrats versus Republicans. Why? Because it masks what's really going on. The real fight is about up versus down, as in the top 0.1% versus the 99%. They spend vast sums of money on narrative management because they know there are so many more of us than them, and they have to keep us at each other's throats, or else we'll see what's really going on and look up. They run it like a puppet show theater, keeping the audience entranced while pickpockets rob them blind. Anytime someone notices, they yell, "Did you see what that puppet did?" Right? It's like, did you see what that Democrat did? And the other on Fox News, and then on the CNN, they'll say, "Did you see what that Republican did?" And it's a show. It's a game to keep us, the 99%, lurching from crisis to scandal to crisis, to prevent us from seeing what we have in common, that all of us are non-billionaires. It doesn't have to be this way. But real change will require a new kind of politics, one that's based on a clear set of demands. And if you go to 11demands.org, you can read more about that. The No Kings rally show that people are hungry for change, but when it's co-opted by one of the red or blue teams, it just becomes part of that puppet show theater. Real change starts with real demands and ends with millions of people in the streets, not letting up until those demands are met. You can check it out at 11demands.org. Let's work together on getting there. And
All right, Eric, you can go home for the day. I think you're done for the
there you
day.
go.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah, I like what that guy said.
What a striking resemblance too. I mean, he
Got the red shirt today. That was
I love it because it's Eric T. Red. Corey, your thoughts on 11 Demands, and I know I'm pretty sure you guys echo the same sentiment, but since we don't get to hear from you a lot, I wanted your thoughts on just the creation and implementation of the 11 Demands. The floor is yours, my friend.
Oh, sure. So yeah, the 11 Demands, it's been fun to see it develop over time. It's been a long running project of Eric and myself. It's just kind of evolved over the time. We've always had a very like strong interest in politics, going back even to the prior Dem exit days. It's always been a big part of our family, and Eric and I's relationship is just doing this political change action and advocacy. And then, of course, as you know, over the past few years, we've been able to collaborate with Sabrina, and that show has grown. And the 11 Demands just kind of started as our knowing that these kind of strong demands were what was kind of lacking in our area of progressive politics, and more so than anything, just kind of like fighting the apathy, because it's very understandable in our community and other kind of political communities that are revolutionary or just kind of against the mainstream, that it can be very tempting to just kind of fall into that everything's bad, and we want to just commiserate about how bad it is, but not talk about what we can potentially do, and those kind of hard next questions and hard action points. So it really just kind of started as a thought experiment over time, and then turned into the demands. And then there was a few different numbers that were along the path to where we finally landed at 11, as a nod to the Spinal Tap and other things.
Up to 11.
Right up to 11. So yeah, it's obviously something that's very close to near to my heart as well, and basically is just our answer for what we think is needed, while still kind of being very open to the fact that this is a thought collective and an evolving thing. I certainly don't see myself as a leader. I don't think Eric sees himself in that way either, because we don't really believe in political leaders. We don't believe in movements that are surrounded or against just around one just person. So we're just kind of spokespeople, I guess, for the 11 Demands and the 11 Demands Collective. And yeah, we like to see, we like to get to know people and try to see what we can do to invoke action.
Well, I only believe in leadership in the sense that there has to be an inciting incident. There has to be a spark, right? If the people in
Yeah.
the collective change are the fire, right? Someone has to light the match. And go ahead, Corey.
Yeah, totally. I don't. I am not like taking a stand against people that want to be leaders. I'm taking a stand against movements that are surrounded against one
Of
figure.
course.
So you can certainly have leaders within, and you need leaders, obviously. But I think just on a concept, leaders should be democratically elected, or should be leaders should be allowed to lead by the people they're serving, I guess is the best way to
Yeah,
put it.
I
it
mean,
should
that's what a
be,
president should be. Go ahead, Eric.
Should
well,
be.
it should be, you start with the demands, then that goes into a movement backed by those demands. And then ideally the leaders emerge out of that movement. You
Yeah,
don't start with, oh yeah, I'm the leader first, and then,
of course. Yep.
and go from
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But of
Ideally,
course,
it'd be like
that's
a
where
meritocracy. Yeah.
Yeah.
but of course, that's how our politics operates now. Oh, here are these shiny leaders,
Yeah.
and follow them.
Well, if you didn't know, you need to ask a union member. Alon said,
Inside
arts are
joke.
the result of people getting together, creating something cooperatively for their own purposes. Arts have been hijacked by corporations. I agree.
Like everything else.
Yeah, and Alan, that's my degree. Again, my degree's in theater performance from Marymount Manhattan College in New York. So I took almost a decade and even put volleyball to the side because of this. And I totally agree. I was neck deep into it, especially like plays that affected people, like Susan Laurie Parks. If you guys Google search her, she's I don't know if she's related to Gordon Parks or Gordon Parks Jr., but she's very much into activism. Like Top Dog Underdog won Pulitzer for Best Drama. I was in a play called FNA. I won't say the F word because if I say the F word, I got to go back and edit this. So guys, if you have to say it, we'll do it and we'll edit it later. But yeah, I was at the Public Theater. I played a bounty hunter, but like I love it because when people got into acting, nobody thought that they can do the type of theater that can affect people. If you actually look at the history of the theater, right? Brecht was what, World War II, post World War II, right? A collective change. Senecan characters, that he was a Greek tragedy playwright. He created all the Shakespearean characters, the ghost, the assassinator, the good guy, the antagonist, and of course Shakespeare. So and if you look at as far back as ancient Greece, ancient Rome, Kabuki theater, all of it was associated to mock and mimic the history of men. So Grand Theft Auto, right? You play Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. It mocks 1992 Los Angeles. To me, that's art. You go in the radio, you go into a car or steal a car or whatever, and you listen to the radio stations. It's a little bit of a parody, but a mockery of that whatever. Vice City was 1983. So, wow, did I drive us off the cliff? Are we gonna bring us back? So, guys, let's
Well, one of the things
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
can make a connection there in that one of the things that that corporate establishment will put out there is this false choice that we have to go with the billionaires and the huge corporations in order to have art, right? They'll act like, oh, well, they're funding it, right? The great philanthropists and whatnot. And our answer as, I don't know if you want to call it socialist or populist or what, is to say, no, we don't need huge corporations and billionaires to have good art. You need people, you need good artists, and you need a collective will to fund the art and a collective mechanism.
Right.
And that's what government, that's the type of thing that government is supposed to do.
Yeah, totally. It's very noticeable here in Boston. In Boston in the 90s, there was a real moment for like punk music and the concert scenes and really just kind of on the verge kind of art scene in Boston. You hardly see that anymore now. And you can look at it a direct line from rental costs and the cost of living in the city in terms of when we had this kind of flourishing moment in the 90s when kind of unconventional people and people that weren't in it for the money were able to move here and did what they do. And now in the city in Boston, it's just so completely corporate and none of that is there anymore. You see a little bit of it in like Providence, Rhode Island, and a little bit in the outer cities that people can still afford. But yeah, you just don't have that art scene at all in a city where artists can't afford to live.
I agree. And in New York City, in the 90s to the late 90s there's a lot of that happening at the same time. If you go to the Village, East or West Village, all the way up to Chelsea, there were artists everywhere, and there were bands playing everywhere. There were avant-garde performances. There were outside performances, and like you said, once it's run by corporations, you'll see a dynamic shift. Now the Village is filled with NYU students and Wall Street people, which I'm not saying that they're not fun either, but yeah, I mean, no, they're fun. To me, if you can sing, like,
The Wall Street people,
yeah. Well, you'd be surprised. These guys,
oh, they can party, but
yeah.
Yeah, that can be a good time.
I am,
That,
dude, I am the,
but they're not artsy. Put it that way.
no,
well,
I
yeah,
am,
but they can be.
Performance art.
well, there was a place in New York called Fat Black Pussycat. And Tuesday night was karaoke night. And they have 3 rooms. They have a bar where there's a pool table. There's a room where it was just lounge chairs, couches. There's a big old throne, like a his and hers throne. And downstairs was like live band. But the lounge was karaoke night on Tuesday. And like, again, some of the theater kids from NYU were really good. And just watching like some of these guys from Wall Street, just have like a 10-person party and then like go up there and like everyone's cheering them on so they think they can sing. Look, that's art too. It's just bad art.
I love karaoke.
It is the ultimate. I do it twice a week. Otherwise I can't function like a mammal. Like Eric, like, and everyone in the comment section, everybody, and actually post your escapism in the comment section. What do you do on the side that allows you to come back and do your job like a mammal? Like my wife, she likes to hike. She likes to climb high mountains, in which case I'm like, have a good time. I'm scared of heights. Mine is karaoke, because volleyball, that escapism became my career. So guys, in the comment section, post your escapism. What's yours, Eric? I'm foreplaying all the way up to the true romance of the 11 demands here. I'm sorry about this, but what's your escapism, Eric?
Well, I'm a weird engineer, so I like to do engineering hobby projects. I'll actually fly around little toy drones with a first-person view with the goggles and race them around and make like a race timer for timing the races. I'll do geeky engineering stuff like that.
Corey's like, yep.
He knows.
Yeah, no, Eric is a true engineer. He does it for fun too. I do engineering for my day job, but it's just my day job. After that, I like going to live music and partying and stuff like that.
Yeah. Dude, I miss good live music. Look, Hermosa Beach is in LA, but it's not LA. Like LA, you will not find a place where they're so phony and they're so fake and they're so disgusting. But this cute little zip code in the South Bay, surrounded by Manhattan Beach, Redondo, you know, Peninsula by Torrance, is this tiny zip code where mom and pop joints and Monday, Lighthouse is like live band, and there's you can basically find a live band every night of the week. So as long as I stay in my zip code, I could tolerate LA. But when I moved here, dude, I told my wife, I was like, if you want to kill me, take me back to Brooklyn and kill me. Put me under the Verrazano Bridge, put two on my head, let me die like a man. Don't let me die here in the sand like a snake. But no, I got used to it. So
Yeah.
sewing, okay, comment section, we got sewing, crochet, knitting, and fixing broken things. Let's go.
Well, I
Let's
can get behind that fixing broken things.
Yes.
I mean that's kind of, to bring it back to the world and the politics and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
that's part of why I do what I do in it. In that when broken things bother me, right? When something's not working right, I have a strong urge to fix it. And obviously we have a world and a politics that's deeply broken and not working right. I put a tagline on some of my stuff, aspiring reality debugger,
Mm-hmm.
which is like I'm trying to debug and fix our current reality. It's a bit of a tall task.
Corey, same thing. You kind of feel fixing what's broken.
In a different way. I think Eric and I have different approaches that work together. I think Eric is definitely more of that traditional STEM engineering math brain that can figure out, machines and systems. I think I'm more of a people person. I think I'm more of a like to interact with people and like to make connections and like to go out and do maybe more of that kind of extroverted stuff. So in that way, I like to fix things if I see people that need help or if there's something I can do, kind of in that way, sure. But
Yeah.
again, it takes all kinds in the world, right? So
Isn't that
it's just
wild?
all of a piece. Yeah.
God, how, how,
Collaborating.
how the hell am I
Collaborating.
both? I'm like, I can
Some people
rock
are
a
both.
karaoke spot, and then, like, if you put me in solitary confinement, I'm like, please, 2 more weeks. I was almost there with my inner self. Please, like Gene Wilder, please put me back. Remember they put him in a box? He's like, please, 2 more days. um, all right, so we're gonna go through the 11 demands, one at a time, and if we need to take our time with that, that's fine. And if we don't, we can move on to the next one. But the first demand, as I go to camera two,
You know what I
is
would say? Let's try this. Start with two.
start with the second one.
Yeah, and then we'll go
All
back
right.
to one.
Well, I'm gonna flash on this really, really quickly so the audience can read it. Then we'll go back to us. Okay. So cool. Everyone can see it on my camera, so no worries, Eric. As you know, our rehearsal, that was a concern, but I got you, and I got this.
He's
For once,
on it.
I got this. So we got healthcare for all, right? And as our audience is reading, I'll go through some of them really quick for the audio version for iTunes and Spotify. Implement United States national healthcare system.
Now, you notice
Ban
what that's not.
right. Ban
That's not Medicare for all.
right.
Medicare for all is a compromise. And one of the things of this, in terms of like turning it up to 11, is the idea of don't demand compromises, demand more than the compromise. You
Right.
know, demand what we really need, which is a full US NHS, National Healthcare System, which covers everyone, which covers all aspects of health.
Right.
So
Cool.
sorry to interrupt,
No,
but that
let's
one, like,
no, but that's an important caveat
yeah,
of interruption. I totally get that. Ban for profit health insurance and reject all privatization schemes. Include the best aspects of healthcare systems around the world. Protect the right to bodily autonomy and reproductive choice. That's my personal favorite, even though I don't plan on having a baby anytime soon. Cover all aspects of healthcare, dental, vision, preventative care. My that might be my favorite. Transform the pharmaceutical industry to serve the public good. Are you trying to get me unalived, Eric? I didn't see that. Oh my goodness.
I had you at bodily autonomy, but you're staying for the big pharma.
Oh, fireworks for YouTube. Every time I put my thumbs up, there's
Well,
fireworks.
that's the
Just
thing
know
about
that.
about having a simple, straightforward list like this is it resonates with people, and it's not a left thing or a right thing or a Democrat or Republican thing. It's a 99% thing.
Well, let's talk about my favorite one first. Well, besides rights to your own body, Eric, we grew up in a time period where one, you never really saw a doctor unless your leg was broke, right? You're not taking drugs for feelings, right? Now you can watch a commercial. It's like, do you go to bed at night and wake up the next morning? And I got Corey being like, I got that, Eric, hook a brother up. But I'm a big so listen, just for the younger crowd, if I had an infection in my leg and my first doctor says I have to have it amputated, I do something called getting a second opinion, meaning I don't say I respect the science. Go, give me the chop, right? You go to a second opinion and sometimes a third opinion. And for me, I'm not disrespecting the science. I just want two things. I want responsible informed consent, right? Because the right to be wrong is an American right. All right, the right to listen to good advice and do what you want, that is our national right for two reasons. One, ignorance is not only bliss, it's constitutional. And two, they're not always right. 10 years later, it's like, sorry about your leg, but we messed that up. So I wanted to,
And that's how science works.
is
Good
there
science,
anyone,
real science.
so
The
the
other thing
first,
too is
so, go, Corey.
I think part of the problem with that too is corporate America and in particular big pharma is trying to play doctor. I mean, I think a lot of doctors are actually pretty like ham-fisted by the society, by the system, and are kind of overly cautious and kind of don't really get to practice medicine and are just dealing with insurance stuff most of the time. I think many doctors also really dislike the system. So I think that I do think that the pharmaceutical advertisements are ridiculous and whatnot. But yeah, I think if anything, the healthcare practitioners who would be giving those opinions would also agree with a lot of this and just like how bastardized the healthcare system has gotten.
Is there a hostage situation with the practitioners? For example,
In a way, sure.
They've
Yeah.
actually passed bills saying that if you speak out against the narrative, you're in danger of losing your license. And you go through your life, you want to be a doctor, and you go to these schools and you got loans you have to pay off until age 79, only for some bureaucrat to say, hey, you don't even get to do that. So from where you guys live or whatever, is there a dynamic that handcuffs practitioners into cowards?
In a general
Well,
way,
well,
sure. I would
that's the
say,
United States, right?
yeah. I mean, I do. Like for example, like having masks on all the time, including to now, a point when really nobody in public life has done that, is doing that anymore. I know people that work in the healthcare system as doctors, PAs, nurses that continue to do that in the healthcare environment, even though they don't agree with the necessity for that, but because all it will take is one patient complaining to their employer, and then they just don't want to deal with
And
it.
that's your job.
So
Yeah.
that's just a very basic example of how like healthcare professionals are not necessarily going to do what's best evidence based, because they have their own bosses and their own loans and their own people to answer to.
But
And
don't
it's
you
always
also,
really important to tie this back to why are these things happening, right?
beat me to the punch.
And everything that's happening in with medical stuff with big pharma goes back to big pharma profits, right? When this, we'll call it the C-19 came down the line, big pharma looked at that and they saw $100 billion plus sitting right there, and they were going to get that $100 billion and more. They saw that, oh, we're getting that profit, that money, and
If
they made damn
yeah,
sure it happened.
yeah, well,
It,
yeah,
regardless of the quote unquote truth of it or the science and the facts, they were going to get that money, and they were going to make sure Congress and the president and the whole system worked with in their favor to get those huge profits. And you just see that time and again in different facets, and all big pharma and all these drugs that are advertised all over the TV. And it's not necessarily that it's all good or all bad. It's just at this point nothing in our society happens, and it seems like, unless it increases the profit of a billionaire.
I
I feel
and
like that's like our core problem. And we have to make those connections, and then we can get into then you can have the demands and the actions to fix them. But until you make those connections, this is what MCDS is all about. MCDS: money, corruption, demands, solutions. And if anything comes out of this in the whole 11 demands, whatever it is, whether it's a movement or a collective, whatever it is, if MCDS comes out of that, we'll have done something significant, because MCDS, money, corruption, demand, solutions. Everything that happens, right, it connects into the money. It connects into the billionaire class and their playthings, the big corporations. And it's all about money in their pockets, extracting wealth and resources and money from the 99% up to that 0.1%. And it's just too much. It's not sustainable. Then they take some of that money and they direct it into government, into Congress, into our politics, and they corrupt the politics. That's the C. So then what do we do about it? Then you get into the demand, and the key demand is to clean up the corruption, to stop having a government that is implacably corrupt and in the service of the huge corporations, the billionaires, the top 0.1%, and working actively against, most of the time, the 99%. And then when you accept and take on board that that's the demand, that's the task, then the solutions really kind of come right from that, right? Then you got to start fixing that, and we can, and we'll get into that too. But anyways, MCDS.
yeah, and I think it's like I said in the beginning. It's not us trying to spoon feed people all the answers. It's about shaping the right question.
It's about
Because
collaborating.
once the question is shaped in the right way, the solution becomes more obvious and not more like this. It's complicated or it's more nuanced. It becomes
That's
less.
one of the
It
favorite
becomes less
things, right? In
nuanced, right?
media.
Yeah,
Oh, it's complicated.
yeah. Well, it becomes less nuanced when you shape the question in the right way, right?
Hmm.
Like, for example, I mean, right? Like, if I'm hammering my thumb, do I have to have a nuanced conversation about taking painkillers so that my thumb doesn't hurt, or do I shape the question of shouldn't you stop hammering your thumb? It becomes a little bit more nuanced. And you reached on the Corey. You
Hmm.
reached on something very significant in the medical field because we live in critical times. Because I think now, I guess post Bernie, right? Or post Bernie 2016, we realize that the weaponizations and the problems are not left. More and more people are realizing the problems are not left right. You were talking about a mask mandate like in certain areas, but let's be real. The billionaires are having a party. Are they going to wear masks? No, right? During the lockdowns, right? Were they wearing masks and were they social distancing? The answer is no. In fact, they use that they use that to do Hollywood films, to get cheaper film permits. They use that Mr. French Laundry, whatever, Newsom, use that to have a house party. On airplanes, we had to wear masks. People on private jets did not. Um,
Except for
and
the helpers, the crew, right?
of course. Yeah. I mean, I don't mean to
The
get on Newsom,
peasants.
but you got Newsom taking a picture next to Magic Johnson during this era, right? And you're saying we're supposed to do all these things to protect the immunocompromised, right? Or you know what I'm saying? And here he is, this guy's got AIDS. Hey, you just chill. He's the poster boy for the immunocompromised, and you're just chilling next to him. So for me, I think the reason why they came down on me is because I was talking about the weaponization of people saying you have to use a gas stove while they're flying over your problems in a private jet, right? Because the yacht's too slow. Uh, um, so let's get into let's stay with this for a little bit. I was talking about preventative health care because I wanted to talk about supporting people who I don't necessarily agree with, like RFK um, is probably the biggest threat to big pharma. But at the same time, one of my I'm developing more of a hard stop with the whole Israel Gaza conflict, and I don't really snub people who feel a certain way because RFK he's never killed anyone, he's never shot anyone, he's never committed a genocide. But it's one of those examples where I'm like, this medical thing, what's happening to our food and what's happening to our health, it cannot stay the same. And I worked in a cardiology practice for 17 years, and I can tell you an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I worked for a guy named Dr. Rosenfeld, he was a doctor of the stars. He became a millionaire, decided millions was enough, didn't need billions, so he just started telling the truth. He wrote books like Rosenfeld's Guide to Alternative Medicine. He wrote a book called Doctor, What Should I Eat? And he wrote a book called Power to the Patient, which is all of them New York Times bestsellers. So I was with that guy for 17 years. And I support RFK because I think our quality of life can be more enhanced if we don't have to rely on drugs. They control you if you need the drugs, and they control the price of drugs. But if you don't need the drugs, right?
They're
Guys,
going to make sure you need them, right?
yeah, guys, if you have high blood pressure, do you use Norvasc or do you just put garlic on everything? Right? If you have high cholesterol, do you change your diet? Or do you take Lipitor, right? If you are on a fat burner, do you take fat burner supplements or do you use avocado, eggs, cashews, dark chocolate, right? These things you're spending money on food anyway. Don't spend money on food and the drugs. So I really love healthcare for all, but I guess cutting out the middleman. I mean, some people need it, right? Type 2 and type 1 diabetics, right, guys? One of them needs the insulin, right?
One of the real problems with the way medicine works now is a lack of good science, a lack of real science. Um, and, there's a real problem in the country with science education in that most people really don't know the difference. Like most people don't know what a good study versus a bad study, double blinded, there's even triple blinded and whatnot. I looked up a lot of this stuff to get even more familiar with it during the COVID era. And it's the problem is that when you have a government that basically is, the regulators are captured by big pharma, by corporations and whatnot, it gets in the way of good science. And so you have, I'm trying not to get too far into the COVID stuff or whatnot, but let's say there's a product out there, right, that's going to make big pharma billions of dollars, and big pharma doesn't want a study that says it's a crappy product and it doesn't work, and so they're not going to run a study. They're going to go out of their way to try to fudge the study to say, oh no, this is the greatest drugs ever. And then what should happen is an FDA, there should be a regulator coming in and saying, well, no, you have to have a real study. Even more so, the government itself should be running significant, large, replicated, multiple studies done well, peer reviewed, the whole bit for any kind of drug product that's going into people's bodies. But when you have a government and the regulators that's bought by big pharma, that's purchased by the corporations and the whole for-profit sector, then it gets in the way of that, and those studies don't happen. And that's how you end up in this kind of situation. So like if you're saying, like, well, should you eat this certain food or take this drug for your high blood pressure? And you ask me, like, well, what do I think? Should it be one or the other? As the scientific answer is, I don't know. We don't know because we haven't run the proper studies to find out. You need to spend years on that and big resources to figure out what's really going on with these things.
Right.
But instead, everything is geared towards big pharma, billionaire profits. And that's, so that I would posit is why we're in this screwed up situation we are, or that's a core reason. And
Well,
so I always like to bring it back to the science and, of course, the money.
absolutely. And you don't have to worry about COVID because this is YouTube and vaccines are safe and effective. And even though Pfizer made 33 billion the first year, 36 billion the second year, and 100 billion the third year, that is totally
Had
irrelevant.
nothing to do with anything.
Do not listen to this shill with glasses. If you haven't had your 8th booster yet, you know. You know.
You know what to
but
do.
I love what you but you know what to do. No, but I love what you said in the sense that healthcare for all, in a general sense, and preventative measures, if we get big pharma and advertising out of it, healthcare will be cheaper and it'll be more doable. As far as government spending and making healthcare for all, it's more doable when there isn't more money thrown into doing the opposite, right?
All these things are going to come back to the same thing. Either we have a government that's totally corrupted and just working for the billionaire interests, the big corporate interests, which is what we have now, or we don't, and we fix it. Mm-hmm. Everything we talk about, and this is why I say that like leave number one in the demands for last, because when you get through all that stuff and then you come back, well, why isn't this happening? What do we do about this? You got to decorrupt the government and fix it. If you do that, we can have a pretty freaking cool country and society and world. And if you don't, then you have what we have. We're effed.
And this, Eric, is why we shouldn't skip the first part. Because as to the question of how we're going to do that, it really goes to number one, which I'm sorry, I guess, I mean, there's so many cool demands, but let's go back to number one as I go to camera 2. All right. Pass laws for clean elections and public financing of campaigns in every state. Enact a constitutional amendment that says corporations are not people. Yeah, good luck with that with the Supreme Court, but that'll be a bigger battle. Money is not speech.
That's what it's about. It's about overturning the Supreme Court.
Right. Regulate campaign spending and lobbying. Investigate and prosecute corruption at all levels of government. Ban revolving door politics. Investigate and prosecute companies that use jobs as bribes. Disallow for higher ranking employees serving as representatives or lobbyists. I really like that. Demand radical transparency for all representatives and agents, which we're jumping off the medical thing, but I would like to say that, I would like to say that if people who work at the FDA are now working in big pharma, it shows a historical context of the people who are supposed to be regulating big pharma or whatever. So I agree. Jesse Ventura said everyone should wear a NASCAR suit. If you wear a NASCAR suit, I get to know I get to know who's paying for your campaign and who's lobbying for you. And I'm not going to vote for you. He was actually, if I have any heroes, he was kind of as close to heroes I'm going to have in politics. Because he showed us it could be done. Go ahead.
No, when he got elected governor, I mean, that showed you something what's possible.
Yeah. Well, his solution, and he was on talk shows, and I don't mean to talk too much, but this is getting to your greater point. How do we get him out of politics? And he said, the answer is as simple as a nose in your face, but as hard as climbing Mount Everest. Stop voting for Democrats and Republicans. And I think he was right. And I think we're going to get into the danger of a third party.
But that's not the solution. That's where we have to be careful.
Right.
Because if all we have to say is don't vote for them, or even don't vote, don't participate. Well, that's not a solution. That's on the road to a solution. But this is a problem, and I see this on the left. It's probably on the right too, in that I see it a lot out there that the problems are enumerated at length, are listed out and whatnot, but then if people are out there saying, okay, so what do we do about it? Like they'll just kind of talk some more and then talk more about the problems.
Right.
We have to have a real idea of what we do about it and a strategy. Mm-hmm. And I would submit that, if people read through 11demands.org, what's out there, I would say that it is there,
Right.
but it's going to be up to us though, as the 99%, and
Right.
every one of us can play a role in that and to make it happen.
Corey, do you feel like 11's demands, right? If this, let's say this becomes like a snowball getting bigger as it goes down the road. If everybody has a like-minded personality like this for our movement where people can rally or whatever, do you think that it might sway some of these people in the other parties to say, hey, these people want something for their vote, and if I don't do this, I'm out? And do you think that could be the foundational purpose of 11 demands? To maybe, like, you're never going to get rid of these two-party duopoly, right? Unless you just burn it all down. But I guess my question to you is, as far as the, not end game, but the inciting incident to the continuation of this movement entices people like maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene to be like, yo, wow, I'm a Republican, but I'm a constituents person first.
Yeah, that'd be a great outcome. I believe strongly in the movement being an independent movement, nonpartisan. That being said, kind of just in terms of brass tacks on how things work, as you're indicating there, is yes, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party most likely are not going to just dissipate in the next few years. If you had a critical mass where a group of people, centered around the 11 Demands and MCDS or similar philosophies in a collective way, and you have a critical mass of people outside of those two parties. Let's say you had a third of Americans that publicly identified as independent and voted that way, and were actually making it clear to the other parties that they had to make concessions to demands, because obviously that's what you want with demands, is either concessions or negotiations. If that kind of moving could force major party figures into opening up these discussions or conceding to demands, of course, that would be a success.
Yeah, and I also, like, a lot of people use the term I'm a registered independent. I think people need to be careful with that, because registered independent means you're part of the Independence Party, right? And if you actually look on their site,
No, not really.
Depends by
well, yes,
state.
really,
Yes,
actually,
it
actually,
depends
yes,
on
really.
which state.
Because,
It depends on
for
which state.
example, in Massachusetts, what
I guess
registered
the proper
independent
role, the
means
proper word is unenrolled,
on
I guess.
Or
in
NP,
Massachusetts, the word that they use is unaffiliated.
well, NPP is most states outside of Massachusetts, New York, California, means no party preference. And the reason why I brought that up, because if
But
you
yeah,
have
they have
if
that
you have
party
a
that they call it,
No, but
Independence Party.
But
Yeah.
the reason why I'm saying that is, let's say you have a candidate that is Democrat or Republican that you want to vote for in a primary. If you're a registered independent, you can't vote in their primary. But if you're no party preference,
Depends on the state,
you are allowed to
actually.
vote in their primary.
It
Well, yeah.
depends on the state.
Well, I'll give
Yeah.
an example, like New York, right?
Yeah, well,
Like
New York is
during the Bernie
Cuomo
movement,
land.
a lot of people registered Democrat to vote for Bernie because
Funny how that worked out,
they
eh?
were a registered independent when they didn't know that if they were NPP, they could vote for everybody. Because for the people listening, the DNC and RNC is financed by us, the taxpayers, right? And I know there are corporations that get to do whatever they want, but they can run it how they want, but they can't run the
Really
vote.
financed by the billionaires, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, DNC, right? That's not exactly what you call a hot dog stand that got bigger, right? That's billionaires. Yeah.
Oh, one of the the political parties, the Democrat Republican parties are really one of it's really the biggest channel for that corrupt money. It can be a little tricky because you have a lot of candidates being asked about APAC, and yes, it should be noted and funded. Yeah, if you have a candidate who's taking money directly from APAC, I mean, it's obviously who they're for, what they're for. But just because a candidate doesn't take direct money from APAC, they're still, if they're a member of either of these two corrupt parties, they're part of that system, and billions of dollars is funneled through the parties. And you have these mechanisms set up with the parties themselves, with PACs, where the billionaire class funnels, billions, trillions of dollars into the political system, into candidates. And so um, it's kind of it's a big part of what the parties do, and it's part of why these two parties are so irredeemable and why they are so beholden to billionaire interests, because that's who's funding them. And you have dark money, it's not all out there and obvious. You can dig and find a lot of it. But, you know, this is why I just think we need to have a form of political militancy, is what I say, in any kind of demands base, really, for the 99% movement, for the 99% people, any movement of that kind. And part of that political militancy, in my opinion, is no votes for the uniparty, period. It doesn't matter if they throw us some crumbs or if they talk real nice or whatnot. Any member of either of these parties, they're a member, they makes them a member of a corrupt, genocidal, warmongering party. And you can't be a member of that and represent me, represent us. And so if an AOC or a Bernie or a Zoran or a Thomas Massey or an MTG on the other side, if they want our vote, step one is exit that uniparty. Choose us or choose them. I think that's the kind of movement we need. That's what a demands-based movement looks like. And no, we're not, and it needs to be us saying, no, we're not going to settle for, oh, you're talking real nice, or you're throwing some crumbs, or you're talking about what you might do. I mean, they don't even promise us that much.
I agree.
So, and in
Yeah.
terms of the two parties being too powerful or whatnot, this is our job. Our task is to have the movement be big enough and numerous enough that they have to do something with this movement.
Here's a question for either one of you guys. Do you think term limits might come into play of that? Because I believe when someone gets elected, once they're elected, their job, unwittingly or not, maybe they didn't know coming in, and maybe some of them knew,
Oh, they
is
know,
to
but
get is to get elected again. So once you're elected, the next 4 years or the next 2 years, your only job is to get reelected, and eventually you're spending all this time campaigning on being reelected that nothing actually gets done. And as far as APAC is concerned, APAC can get people for cheap because, like I said in the chat before, like if I'm running against Eric, right, and they offer Eric 50 grand, Eric's like, man, even though I was gonna sell my soul, it's not gonna be for 50. Gee, you got to do better than that. But they know I'm broker than Eric, and they offer me 40, and I take the 40. Then we got a problem. So some people APAC doles out money for, and some people they get you for cheap because they know they can have a candidate that runs against you. And like you said, the common denominator is the same. When you get elected, you're gonna owe these guys, man. So my question, because I talk too much and I got to circle back to the question, would term limits be one of the solutions for that?
I mean, term limits are a tool. Um, I, what one problem is that the problem is systemic. So I think, it's a tool that can be useful, but it's not going to solve the problem. At best, they're basically just going to find younger Congress critters to bribe. Essentially, there's always going to be someone else in line. I think you have to be careful about getting too caught up in the tools and really focus on the core issues and the core problems. I mean, I'm not against term limits. It's, it has some potential, but we have this core problem that the whole system from top to bottom is corrupt. It's all run by money. It's all in the interests of the billionaires. And so the real tools that I think we need to be looking at, are the ones that are in that number one demand on there. You need to be regulating the campaign spending, and then you run into this problem, of course, of the Supreme Court, right? Supreme Court's going to strike down a lot of reasonable campaign finance regulation. So we need that constitutional amendment to say corporations are not people, money's not speech. And so I feel like those are the real tools that we really need to be focusing on. The problems are systemic. Like you talk about when people get into it when they first come in. I mean, I think we give these Congress critters a little too much respect, frankly, and a little too much grace. You know, a little. I I think all these people are really pretty corrupt. Are really they know what they're getting into. They're groomed. Anyone who thinks like you or me or Corey, like we don't run for office. We don't get elected as a Democrat or a Republican because we get filtered out before we start.
Right.
You have like AOC came in with this big narrative of oh, she was this bartender or whatnot, and you find out later, well, she
Kennedy.
was yeah, she was a Kennedy intern. She was groomed. They don't get that far in these corrupt parties unless they know damn well that they're going to play ball. And it's the same on the other side with the Republicans. And it's nice when MTG and Thomas Massey say populist things, but as long as they're part of the corrupt uniparty, they're complicit. I'm sorry.
Of
I
They
course.
can
agree.
come to us.
Yeah.
And that's
I,
both
Corey?
parties, both
I
sides.
don't support anybody that's affiliated with a major party. I
Mhm.
voted for Jill Stein in the last election.
And you did too, right, Jason?
I voted for Jill Stein, but I am I
There you
am
go.
I am
Um,
by no stretch of the imagination a green.
Hmm.
I
I'm
wouldn't
in
You
that
were
chat.
that
I'm in that
day.
chat
I
section
You
with you
were
wouldn't
that
guys. I
day.
am alone.
I wouldn't self-identify
Mhm.
as that.
Mm-mm.
I'm only going to support anybody that's either an independent, which would be my preference. My
Right.
preference would always be an independent candidate, but I would consider a third party that I closely aligned with.
Jill
Yeah.
had a good platform.
And
That's really what it
I
came
think
down to.
I think she did. I mean, for me keeping the glass half full, I got her. She got my vote because to me the things that count that she ran on that count identified with. I'm just a single voter. I'm my own person. I'm not. To me, critical thinking is not a team, a freaking team sport. Critical thinking is an individual thought. So my critical thinking skills dictated that I vote for her, even though I knew her campaign was flawed, and even though I knew that the social intolerance would only make them do twice the work and wind up with half the votes, which is what happened in 2016. She got 1.5 million votes, and then last year she got 750,000 votes, which is only 20,000 more than Kennedy, who dropped out. So I understood. I voted for her because I understood that elections are won and lost all the time, but I wanted to look back and say, was I on the right side of history and who I voted for? And I think I speak for the three of us. We were on the right side of history voting for that woman. She spoke. She spoke
I do agree with that.
righteousness.
Sure.
Do you guys agree? I don't mean to speak
Yeah,
for you. I'm a big
Oh,
mouth,
yeah, of
no,
but
course.
I agree. I mean, that
yeah,
was an anti-genocide vote. Yeah.
yeah. Right. I mean, be a human being. I'm trying not to curse here because I honestly, I'm just going to let this whole video, the live thing ride. I'm not editing nothing, but I'm going to watch my mouth. Be a freaking person. Be a freaking human being, dude. Yeah. Rich, poor. I mean, in New York, you can have a conversation with a billionaire and a homeless person in a 1 block radius. They're people. Man equals man. What are you doing? Don't vote for these people who support you. Oh, by the way, I just wanted to get this clip up because you're talking about the 99%, but like if you consider people who are not registered for parties, this is still the majority of the country. They identify as independents, right? Now you're talking about class structure, and I'm actually talking about third party, and they seem like separate things, but I think you're going to have a meeting of them. I think in order to have this movement, you have to have the meeting of the minds with that 43% and the 99% looking outside of the billionaire class.
And most people don't even vote. I mean,
There's
most
that.
people check out. They don't want to talk about politics. They don't want to hear about it.
Mhm.
And when it comes to election time and they have to go and vote, it's like they hate it and they just want it over with. You
Yeah.
know, and those are the people that a movement like this needs to reach.
And we don't, as far as 4-year offices, independents cannot be catching people on this not ready stuff. You got like 6 months to the election. All of a sudden, you're trying to have this movement when you should have been had this. As you're saying in Brooklyn, you should have been had that. You should have been had that. When's the last time you guys heard from Butch Ware? Guy's running for governor next year. When was the last time you? And this is the guy I like. In fact, this is the guy I actually like more than Jill Stein. Okay, but who's talking about him? Or is it going to be a governor race where everyone's caught on this last minute whatever? Because let me tell you something. If you start talking about him now, you don't need a lot of money. YouTube is an influence. YouTube, 10 years ago, everyone's like, oh, Eric's on YouTube.
Jason, you're not on screen right now, right?
Sorry. But everyone's like, Eric's on YouTube. He can't be taken seriously. Actually, the 11 demands are more important than my face, but thank you. No, but like 10 years ago, it's like, oh, Corey's on YouTube. I can't be taken seriously. But now all of these people want to be on YouTube because now YouTube is a serious platform and it's free, right? We can, Jesse, again, I don't mean to go back to Jesse Ventura. He ran on $325,000, which was the least financed campaign. You know, he polled at 14%, which is enough to get him in the debates. And that's the formula. Like, you have to be
and
ballot.
I would submit that
you have to be ballot in every county, and then you have to be allowed in the debates.
But I think he was clear that he did have a core message that equates to a core set of demands, right?
Yes.
He had key things that he talked about as far as they're all corrupt and we got to clean it up, right?
Man, I mean, let's say if he had 50 more Erics and 100 Sabbies, I would have been like, yo,
Jill, work on that.
Jill, why don't you take a back seat and let this guy, whatever. Because everyone that went after Jill Stein really had nothing on this guy, right? You remember the Breakfast Club thing? They tried to cook Jill and Jill, right? Butch was there with her. What did they say to Butch?
Yeah, I mean, Jill was in a tough position because she kind of got enlisted after the Cornel West fiasco.
Yeah.
Jill Stein, as far as I know, was not intending to run as the Green Party candidate for president in 2024. But after the situation with Cornell, the Green Party needed a candidate, and she manifested. So she was in a tough spot. I just want to put that out there.
That's a very important variable. Yeah.
But I also do love Butch Ware, and I mean, I'm curious because we're in Mass, we're quite a far away from California. I can't really say that I know too much about what's going on in California politics. I mean, had there been attention around Butch Ware? I mean,
No.
Is it something that gets coverage anywhere in the local media, even paper, nothing, anything?
No paper, no coverage. Just people getting mad about being in their backdrop. Just people running for office getting mad for candidates throwing phones. It's been kind of a bargain, and if there's any good time for Butch Ware to win, now's the time. Nice hair Gavin's gonna get his butt kicked in 2028, most likely by Vance, unless something happens to Vance and they got Tulsi Gabbard in the chamber. They put her in the back to do no harm for the next 4 years. And now is the time. Well, I think the window would be between now and 2026. If you don't hear about Butch Ware in 2026, it's too late. Because in order to do this on less money, the guy's squeaky clean. Like, he doesn't, you don't have anything like in his past to bring up that actually has any relevance. And once you have the problem, go ahead.
The problem is you can have the best candidate in the world. One or two candidates isn't going to fix this, right? That's not. That's not the overall fix.
No, but the inciting incident has to start with one.
The what?
The inciting incident that puts everything into play has to start with the match.
Yeah, but I think the match needs to be all of us, right? It needs to be each one of us.
Fire.
I'm saying that this needs to be a movement of literally millions of people literally in the streets, backed by a clear set of demands. To me, that's the only way that real change is going to happen. And if we can somehow make that happen, and I think every one of us has a role that we want to be playing in this, if we can make it happen, then something real can happen. But also pessimistically, I would say if that doesn't happen, if you don't have literally a movement of millions in the streets with those real demands, then I don't think we see much change.
Right. Agreed. Someone said Aaron Mate actually a few weeks ago. Granted, he's from Canada. He is a lesser of two evils believer.
I think they're kind of talking to each other in chat too.
Yeah, I like that. Well, someone said, I like Kamala. What do you like about her? I just like her. I know what you like about her. I got
That's
some
fire.
I got some collard greens to sell you, man. They came right out of the bathtub, babe.
That's
Somewhere next to
firepower
my
in chat.
cubes.
She's a friend.
Yeah, she's you better ask a union member. No, but I agree with Aaron Mate as far as the lesser of two evils, because what you're voting for is a compromise. Like, all right, the lesser of two evils means you're giving up something, but you're also getting bang for your buck. But the problem that Eric is talking about is you're compromising, and then when they get elected, they're not even like, let's say you disagree like with three bad things, three good things. This guy has three good things that's better than zero. And the other guy, I'm going to vote for the three good things. He gets elected. You don't even get the three good things, and I think that's what Eric is. Eric is, I guess it's the Malcolm X Wolf and the Fox thing,
Yeah, we can't keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
No, it's not working.
Right.
We've got, a few 100,000 kids in Gaza showing how well our current system is working right now.
Yeah.
It's beyond ridiculous. And so I think we got huge, massive problems here, and it's going to need big demands, big solutions. And so, voting for the lesser of two evils, or voting for who's put in front of you, fine, do that, whatever. But spend most of your time on something bigger, on something.
Well, the thing is the lesser of the two evils thing, like haven't we been doing that? Hasn't that kind of been the mental calculus for Democrat voters for the most part, for the past couple decades, with the exception
Bernie
of
would have been the lesser of two evils. We couldn't even get him.
was an unusual thing, but for most part, it's still that kind of lesser of two evil thing that I don't really like that person, but I don't like the and again, it's
It's the
proof in
game.
the pudding. Like what's been happening? What is the results? What are we seeing? Like that what we're seeing is the result of that, lesser of two evils voting mentality. And we're in a bad spot. So I don't see how doing more of that makes sense.
Well, I only agree with you in the sense that the people that voted for lesser of two evils, when they voted, they still didn't get what they compromised for, right? Guys, life is about the lesser of two evils. We all fall short of the glory, man. I could look back 5 years, find my worst moment, and then use that worst moment to judge me who I am my entire life. You can cancel me, I can cancel you. And at the end of the day, none of us are considered great people and far from perfect. So life is dictated about compromising this and taking what you can get. And the only reason why I agree with you, and it's the only reason that counts, is we've tried this lesser of two evils things, and you're not even getting what you compromised for. Like this guy's pro-life, but I got a good standard. I'm voting for a good standard of living. He promised a rent freeze. He gets elected. I got a pro-life guy, and my rent's still going up anyway. So like you said, how many times are we going to go through this? And in Eric's genius, that leads me to number 3. the third demand. Let's go back to my box. Knock them out the box, Rick. Oh man, they're all my favorite. I was gonna say my favorite. I already said that. Make a minimum standard of living for everyone. Make the minimum wage a real living wage. Provide.
And this again, like I'll interrupt you again because it's like the healthcare one where it's like don't demand a compromise, right? It's like fight for 15, or even if you make it now, fight for 25. Just asking for a higher minimum wage is you're putting all this energy into a compromise. What you should be demanding is to turn it up to 11 and say, we're going to have a minimum standard for everyone in the country, period. We're going to give everyone the minimum things. That is what we should be able to do, and that's what we should be demanding.
Exactly. Provide housing for all, create public food pantries, Implemented federal job guarantees to provide good jobs at a living wage. Very important. Protect
Maybe
Social Security.
transformative.
Yeah, protect Social Security and benefits, mandate paid parental leave and sick days, eliminate student loan debt, and provide free public college. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. And ban predatory lending and enact real debt relief for the 99%, which is basically everyone. So, Eric, I really liked the free public college thing, because what a lot of people don't remember.
Used to be, right?
Right. Yeah. I'm from New York, and the CUNY system, which is City University, in the 70s, at least up to the early 80s, was free. My mom graduated John Jay College, criminal justice. Got it. And you were a city resident, it was free. So it's not a matter of like, how are we going to pay for it? It's just a matter of how did we remember paying for it? And let's go back to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it takes action. It's something that in Massachusetts was able to be done on the state level as of a few years ago. And if you're a resident of Massachusetts and you have been for at least a year, if you have not already received a bachelor's degree, you can go to any of our community colleges and get a 2-year degree for free, which is not everything we want, but it's evidence that it can be done on the state level, brought back. That is.
If you make it popular enough and likable enough, even on the national level, the president will sign off on it. Barack Obama signed a bill called VRAP, Veterans Retraining Assistance Program. So if you got laid off through no fault of your own and you were interested in pursuing another career, let's say for layman's purposes, you're a file clerk, but files have gone electronic. Your position's obsolete, right? So maybe you need training on how to do electronic maintenance on filing, or maybe you just want a different career. So the first 40,000 applicants, they signed a bill, if you're a veteran, to retrain you. And I actually used that. I lost my job. My boss passed away, and the medical college let go of everyone. Well, he retired, then passed away, but I used it to go to real estate school. They paid for my books. They paid for some cost of living. And I was able to pass the exam on my first try, which is difficult because New York real estate license has a 66% fail rate for first time tests. But the relief I got allowed me, I guess, more of a hone and more of a focus. And I was doing real estate for 4 years, which you never want to do real estate in New York for rentals. It has to be that they will cut your throat. Okay. It's got to be sales, but that's an example of something that's popular. Hey, we're taking care of our own. It's on a national level. Hey, the president, we want you to sign this. For vets, this doesn't cost a lot. Boom. And that's, Corey, I see you're swirling and I got to give you a chance to talk. Something you wanted to add to that?
Oh no, I've just been enjoying listening to that. But one thing that you did make me think of is just the importance of looking at education like holistically, like I not just thinking about like your traditional college environment, which I don't think necessarily has a huge amount of value for a lot of people. Vocational programs, realty programs, certification programs, apprenticeships, any of that. I just thought that was good to bring up when we're talking about public education and expanding that. Really particularly vocational and stuff that can play into that. And it's kind of what we think of.
Yeah. And before we jump off that, Eric, lastly, there has been a dynamic shift from our timeline. Again, I love talking to someone close to my age, even though I have no idea. I'm assuming I have no idea how old Eric is. You're ageless, brother. I'm 55. But from 1996, pretty much to 2008, 2010, everything you applied for required a college degree, right? You wanted to be a coder. They weren't offering vocational schools for that. You had to go to college for it. So what I would like in my policies is to not mandate degree requirements for occupations that don't really require a degree. I'm a volleyball coach. I have been coaching since 1998. I don't think I should have to have a college degree to coach. It is a singular skill that I learned through apprenticeship, through a head coach, through, sports information directors, through directors of operations. And there are people that don't have degrees that are better coaches than people who actually have the degree. And and a lot of my friends will argue against it. You can't coach college unless you've been to college. I'm like, just stop. Just stop. That's like saying you need to be, a practicing physician to be the head of the NIAID, right? So, Eric, so there was that timeline where they got rid of degree requirements for things that didn't need a degree. Is that a better direction as well? Or does that still not solve the problem of like student debt relief and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the problems are big, right? And the solutions are going to have to be big. But I think what we should be doing as part of this kind of a movement is to be painting a picture of what this better world would look like. And what you get with that third demand, with a minimum standard of living for everyone, public job guarantee. If we had a world like that, essentially what would happen is work would become a choice for the 99% for people. Um, the way it is right now for the sons of rich people, the sons and daughters of rich people, right? Jeff Bezos' son doesn't have to worry about whether he, gets a job or not, or whether he goes to college or not, or whatnot. And I'm not saying that our society should have everyone be rich, be a billionaire or a billionaire's son, but our society should have everyone. We should imagine a society where everyone has their basic needs, where we're not saying to people, to the workers, do this job that enriches a billionaire or starve and die in the streets. And right now, that's basically what our society is. We live in this brutal society, and the narrative and the education system and the media all works to put it in our heads that it can't be better. Like most people can't even imagine the kind of society I'm talking about.
Right.
It's like, how could that be possible? And in a way I like to frame it is it's very possible. We can have that kind of society where everyone has nice things, where we look after everyone no matter what. Or we can have billionaires.
And I
Or we
agree.
can have this current thing. So it's time to choose.
I agree with you in the sense that nobody's asking to be a millionaire. They just don't want to live on their knees, right? I had RB Ham on the podcast the other day, and we did a straight hour of ranting, like no subject matter. And as a native New Yorker and someone that has friends in New York, and watching what's happening to Mamdani, I mean, look, he chose to run under the Democratic ticket, but under things that go further left. So now his own party
A little bit.
his own party don't even want him, right?
A little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, like come on, you don't see Snopes dismissing all the lies about him. Snopes is sitting this one out, okay? All right, all of the political fact checkers that lean left are all sitting this one out. You're on your own, even though he already beat the candidate in the primary he's running against. Right? So I became inflamed because all of my friends are like, oh, you support this socialism, this socialism. All of a sudden, socialism is now communism. Communism's Marxism. And you listen to these people just shut their eyes and ears and just open their mouth and not know what the definitions are, the classic definitions of these things are, and live in such a bubble that I'm like, how could you live in New York City and guys you play volleyball with or whatever and not even think about their plight? I have two friends right now. One just checked into a homeless shelter, and one is getting out next week. And do you know why they're in a homeless shelter? Because they had two jobs and they lost one of their jobs, both the guys. So they were working two jobs that let them make just enough money to be broke. Just enough money to be broke. And when they lost one of their jobs, they wound up in a homeless shelter. Not because they're lazy, not because they didn't pull themselves up by their bootstraps, or not because they're not working smart enough, but because they lost one of the two jobs which dominate their entire day. So a career's out of the question. Your only function is to get up, go to work your two jobs till you go back and go to sleep. So they're not even thinking about career advancement. They're thinking about survival. And what you're trying to tell me is the guy who's underpaying them, You're on his side because some guy running for mayor is offering them a free bus ride to and from work. What the hell are these people talking about? Socialist Marxism? No, be a goddamn person. Get the identity things out of your head, because maybe some of my stances are Marxist, but it doesn't make me one. You voted for Jill Stein, that don't make you a green. You had people that voted for Trump because they didn't want Kamala Harris. Don't make them a Republican. And all I'm saying is, fine, this dude chose to run under the DNC ticket, and that's he believes he can change the system from the inside out. And how's that worked? Like you said, Corey, how's that worked? It hasn't, right? But I am supporting him because even if he gets elected and fails, the idea of the movement that started with Obama, that continued with Bernie Sanders, makes people say, hey, we should do it that way, except do it right.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, that's all fine, but I would propose spending more energy on a real movement, on something that is in real opposition to the current system. When you're talking about your friends, and we all have friends like this, I mean, well, most people are struggling in some fashion and whatnot, and we all have friends who are really struggling, if not ourselves. Is that it's important to remember that while all these people are struggling and while there's so much of this happening, the huge corporations, the war machine, big pharma, all that are literally richer than ever. The people who own them, the billionaire class, they are literally richer than ever.
Largest transfer of wealth, yeah.
If you look at any kind of data of that billionaire class, and I like to frame it as like the 0.1%, which the cutoff is maybe about 100 million. If you got 100 million in wealth, like, you're living on a different planet than we are. Like, you're in that other world. That class, that economic class, is literally richer than ever. They are making out, man. I mean, this isn't just like, oh, it's a weird economy and we're all struggling. No, they are richer than ever. They are extracting more and more wealth from that 99% than ever. You want to talk about a class war, right? They are waging class war on us.
But it's a war we're not going to win unless we do it. Unless
they have
we do
the
it right.
numbers and the resource. I mean, they have the money and the resources, but we have the numbers, and they can only keep this grip going as long as the 99% stay asleep. Now, I'm not saying that it should be something, like physical violence or something like that. I'm talking about a political revolution, but a real one, one that's based on these clear demands. And it's about wresting the power away from this small number of very rich and powerful people and getting that power to the 99%. And so I think the demands are key. And getting the numbers are key. But you're right. If we don't have the numbers, yeah, they're going to keep on what they're doing. I think what you're doing, when you're just talking to people about, look, this is so screwed up, be a human being, that's really important.
It's a start.
This is how movements can happen. If we all do that, if everyone, who hears this, and then the people they talk to, it's possible. But it's going to need clear, concise demands. It's going to need that core. That's why I keep coming back to it.
Yeah, and I like that you keep coming back to it, because sometimes, I'm a prisoner of the moment, and I drive the three of us back off the cliff, and then you with the Jesus ponytail take Jesus take the wheel. Corey's like, he's talking about you.
The guy that wrote that song, he had a plane crash a couple of weeks ago.
Whoa. Wow, didn't know that.
Jesus take the yoke.
Jews, nice. So let's I really like this one too. It's my favorite. I feel like, geez, I gotta stop saying that. I feel like we're in the car, right? And you guys are playing like music, and every song that comes on, yo, that's my jam. Yo, that's my favorite song. It's like you just said that for like 4 straight songs, Jay. end the wars.
There you go. You want to talk about
yeah. Now this,
cross ideological support
yeah.
and the frickin' wars.
Well, this was what I would call an old school Democrat thing. If you remember, the DNC was, or at least offered the illusion of free speech, anti-war, and there's been a dynamic shift during the Obama and Biden administration that Trump is like, cool, we're doing that too, except now we're doing it our way. So, and
You know what I like to say? The Democrats tee the ball up, and then the Republicans hit it out of the park.
yeah, I like that actually. Me, I like the wolf and the fox. Like, they kind of got the same teeth, except one set of teeth looks like a smile, right? You ever see like an owl? Hold on, I gotta go back to. Do you guys ever see like an owl, right? And
Owls are
big
cute.
all cute, wide eye, like unassuming. You're like, oh my god, I just want to
Unless
go
you're a
pet
mouse.
it. What's gonna happen when you pet that owl? He's gonna f up your world, dude. I promise you. And that's what the fox does. The fox has teeth that look like a smile, that looks furry, and like your friend. And your sports, it's crazy because I'm using the social reference and I'm the sports guy, and you and you use the sports reference. So Eric, a brief synopsis. I'm going back to this, and I will 100% give you guys a chance to do what you do best and talk about this. And support of all government that engages in settler colonialism and genocide. Cut
Gee, who could
military
that
budget.
refer to?
Yeah, cut military budget to at least 20% every year, disband NATO and reform imperialist foreign policies and end sales of military weapons by U.S. companies, replace military jobs with federal green jobs, repeal the U.S. Patriot Act, the Espionage Act, and similar laws, prohibit intelligence agencies from conducting propaganda and intrusive surveillance operations against the American people. I think we could probably get 3 of those done. Some of them are easier than most. Disbanding NATO, I know that seems hard, but if you have the right president, guys, that's actually pretty easy. You know, you guys are on your own. If America tells NATO they're on their own, guess what? The disbandment takes care of itself. Nobody else wants none of that.
NATO is basically an arms dealer.
It is.
I mean, every country that joins is contractually obligated to buy a whole set of NATO-approved arms.
Yep.
Gee, what's happening there?
Yep.
War racket, MIC profits, anyone?
And I can't believe such a big organization flies under the radar, Corey. Right? Like I remember Bernie Mac in the movie Head of State. It's like, I don't talk about nobody I don't know. Do you know NATO? Do you know NATO? No, you don't. So, isn't it weird though that they're so big and we don't talk about them enough? Sorry. Okay. Military budget, 20% every year, and I think that that's easy to do as long as someone has the testicular fortitude to actually do an audit on the Pentagon and defense spending, which people think are the same thing but are not. Eight straight failed audits. Make that happen.
Must be nice, huh?
I think the 20% will take care of itself if we just do an audit, right? And, you know, Elon Musk, who spent all this time going after a park ranger who makes 40 grand a year for taking an hour and a half lunch instead of an hour. This little dog and pony show that involved millions made people argue, but we're not talking millions, Eric.
And also ruined the lives of a lot of federal workers.
Yes.
Who got fired.
And for what? For millions, which seems like a lot, but we're not talking about millions, are we, guys? We're talking about billions.
It's really the reason why things happen in Washington. You know, it's that war machine money really runs everything. If you look at Ukraine, you know, why did Ukraine happen? Because the war machine looked at it, that military industrial complex, and said, well, if we can get a fight going between Ukraine and Russia, well, then that's going to lead to tons and tons of weapons sales. And it has. That's the real driver.
No wonder they failed an audit.
With what's happening. What's that?
No wonder they failed an audit. But go ahead.
But it all, you know, that's the blueprint for all of it. It's all about that I don't know if I call it, yeah, it's a grip because it's about selling the weapons. And, if the weapons go to Ukraine and then Putin just blows them up the next day, well, that's fine with the war machine because what does that mean? You got to buy more and you got to use more. They don't care. This is what Assange said. They don't care about winning these wars. What they care about is funneling the money from, these federal dollars, the money that belongs to all of us, to the war machine, which is the huge corporations and the billionaires. The same in Israel and Gaza. At its core, this horrible genocidal slaughter that's happening is a huge profit maker for the war machine. Every bomb that's dropped in Gaza is profit for that war machine. And so if you want to know why Biden and Harris were for it and why Trump and all his cronies just keep it going, it's profit. That's the core driver of so much of these things. And we're going to have to call it out and deal with it directly. It's not going to be some side effect. It's not going to be if we put in the right person. It's part of the corruption. And and so we're going to need to face up to that and demand an end to it and the corruption that drives it. It's very direct. It's not some side effect. It's not something that just kind of happens. It's a huge driver of everything that happens in DC. Max Blumenthal talks about sometimes how in Northern Virginia you have these thousands and thousands of mansions of these weapons contractors and just the people who work in that industry. It's vast
Merchants
sums.
of death. Yeah.
Mhm.
Merchants of death, as
And
Alon just said.
and it's going to take a big movement demanding an end to it.
Yeah. And I think if that happens, we can cut it by more than 20%. But I think 20% is a win. Like what's our military budget?
It was just trying to throw
our
a
annual,
number at
our
it,
annual, our military budget, I think, is what, 925 million, a billion, which is really
That's the
over
budget
more
you
than
know
a trillion.
about.
Yeah, it's more than a trillion, right? So that's code for more than a trillion. Remember we were talking about the money we're spending on Ukraine, and they came up with this number, like this conservative number, which by the way is still like gnarly, still
Hmm.
ridiculous. Yeah. Um, yeah, get rid of the Espionage Act. I mean, we prosecuted Assange on it, and he's not even American, so that made no sense. I don't know. Maybe we got to have a better whistleblower protection act too, right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, Corey. Yeah,
Oh, no, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. I think. Well, too, we don't want to have like this. I don't know. Like the cartoon that has like the box with the stick, and then you go into the box with the cheese, and they pull the stick and they trap you in the box. That's what the whistleblower thing looks like to me, like from a pictorial basis, and protect them from accidents. That would be nice, right? How would you like to be found with both hands tied behind your back, double tap, entry wounds to the head? The police rule aside, you know, or not alive, for YouTube purposes. Prohibit intelligence agencies from conducting propaganda. There was a bill that was passed that allowed us to do that. Do you guys know anything about that?
I don't know the huge details, but I know under Obama,
Obama,
there was definitely some legislation passed that loosened that up considerably.
right?
And yeah, it should definitely be, on the books as illegal to do that. But
Right.
and again, it comes back to decorrupting the government. It's these things are fixable, but not while you have a corrupt government.
Right. I agree. Let's move on to number 5. We're probably not going to get through all 11, but the core ones, the foundational one was getting money out of politics. And honestly, I really enjoy talking to you guys. We could have just went for the first one and had lunch and got lunch somewhere, or for you guys, I should say dinner, right? East Coast, you guys, East Coast lovers.
Hmm.
We are.
I am too. I miss New York, dude. I miss New York. Racial and criminal justice reform. Provide reparations for ADOS, that's American Descendants of Slavery. And I like that it's categorized under a debt that is owed. I don't like using the word cash reparations. I don't like you saying this reparations, this repair, that repair, this, because people start thinking about where's the money going to come from. But if you categorize it as a debt that is owed, people are thinking more about the positive how, not the negative how. Like not like we need to study this, right? End mass incarceration and address the root cause of crime, which is poverty. I like that. Cut police budgets and reallocate sources of community. Yeah, if someone's mentally ill, they need a counselor, not a cop, right? We don't want people who are mentally ill to. We don't want them on subway stations pushing people on the tracks either. So, to me, mental health is the common denominator of all of this. Demand unjustified shootings of unarmed individuals results in the firing. I think you guys are generous. How about I would say prosecution, if it's done with malice and intent. Address the brutal treatment of indigenous people, land back, end the drug war. That's huge. That saves us tons of money because we should not be prosecuting people for crimes against themselves. The war on drugs, in my personal opinion, is equivalent to the war on terror. It's a phrase that doesn't have a conclusion, right? The war on terror, what's the end game? There is none.
Mm-hmm.
The war on drugs, there is no end game, right? So we need to stop getting into these abstract wars that don't have endings. Your thoughts on any of those things? ADOS is one of my favorites because I'm African American. A lot of people don't know that I'm black.
One of the quips I'd like to make is that, you would think a bunch of capitalists would have would be able to wrap their heads around the concept of a debt owed.
Right.
But yeah, and the point with the reparations part was not to lay out a whole study and solution and whatnot here in the 11 demands. The point is to have this core concept of it. It's a debt owed. And then, look to people like Sandy Darity and the people who really have studied it and have clear thoughts. There's on Sabby's channel, there's an interview with Sandy Darity and his wife Kirsten about reparations, and he answers all these questions. How do you tell who to give it to, and all this stuff that I would highly recommend people seek out and find that interview. But it's solvable, but it's again, it's on the political will.
Yep. I think our stream just froze. I have a connection is unstable thing happening, even though
I see the spinny on here.
Yeah, it's all right. Well, this will come up on the edit anyway. I'm going to put it up anyway, and everyone can watch this. They can rewatch this anyway. Yeah, I agree with you, but I agree with all of that, but emphasizing that we need to find a way to compensate what is owed. American descendants of slavery. We managed to do it for everybody else. We managed to compensate what? Japanese internment camp people. We managed to compensate Holocaust survivors, even though we didn't cause the Holocaust. We managed to compensate American descendants of slave owners. People that own the slaves, they got theirs. But when it comes to American descendants of slavery, which is predominantly African American, mostly African American, there's always this question of, we need to study that. And Sabby's really big on that. And again, I'm so glad I met her because the argument of a debt that is owed is stronger on the federal level. On the state level, you guys are going to have problems. On the state level, a lot of people who, like California, like people who never enslaved anybody don't want to give people who were never enslaved in a state that never had slavery, right? So that's more of a difficult hill to climb. But on a federal level, do your job. And Oklahoma, how about that woman from Oklahoma who's a surviving descendant of Wall Street? Remember Black Wall Street? She's a surviving member, and she won her case for reparations, and the Oklahoma State Supreme Court shot it down. She's 106 years old. Couldn't even. So she's the one person where everyone's like, "Oh, these people aren't alive." I'm like, here's a situation where the woman's actually alive. And you're still not gonna give the debt that is owed. So, uphill climb.
Yeah, they just don't want to do it.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah,
I think Corey can talk about
please.
Incarceration and some of these other items.
Yep, go ahead. I'm gonna actually stop this stream and then redo it as but my recording hardware, this again, the whole world went to hell. This still keeps recording, so we're good. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Do you just in terms of incarceration, in terms of the demands, or
In terms of
Well, just in terms of
stopping
like,
mass
and
incarceration,
yeah, mass incarceration,
nonviolent
police
crimes,
budgets.
crimes against yourself.
Talk about defund the police.
defund the police in itself is a kind of a not super helpful term because it doesn't necessarily mean anything. As a matter of fact, that's not a term that the police would be afraid of because it's just kind of abstract. You want to talk about, specifics. That being said, we know about, the issue with the 13th Amendment and prison labor, mass incarceration being a huge thing, the destruction of the Black family that has been a result of the war on drugs, which has turned into just a war on the poor, which for the most part has turned into a war on Black people in particular. Ultimately just viewing these as control methods of the state and understanding that the criminal justice system doesn't work for the public that it's supposed to. I mean, I'm a big fan on for example, something called restorative justice, which is an alternative means of dealing with crime and the victims of crime when ideally you have situations where both the victims of crime, the community, and the person being accused of a crime are brought together and uh, meetings with particular people that are trained mediators, therapists kind of work through to try to make make whole as much possible as that. Basically just incarceration for the most part is pretty not helpful towards the society. It just kind of goes into the prison industrial complex and also creates that. The correctional system, if it's supposed to be taking offenders and reintegrating them into society, that's not happening right now. Ideally that's what I would like to see as part of that is just really a criminal justice system that's built to actually do what it's intended to do rather than just be like a control weapon for power and the billionaires, which is what it is right now. I mean, essentially, you know your police officer, regardless of what level they are, federal, state, local, their primary goal, whether they know it or not, because a lot of them don't. A lot of them think that they're in the club, but they're not. They're just, the attack dogs. Their main job is to keep the public down to a roar and to protect private property. That is their primary goal. And so all of that really just needs to be reevaluated. And like I said, how for leaders they should be allowed to lead by the people they're leading. I think the same for law enforcement. I think that there should be some the community should consent to who they're being enforced by. The community should agree on who the law enforcement people are. And it should be something that can also be taken away in terms of whatnot. We need to I'm a big fan of communities policing themselves and self-policing. That being said, if you deal with like a large group of people, you're going to need some sort of law enforcement agency, just for that's just how the world works. But really, we need to have control, that real control, not fake control where there's just these toothless review boards, but a real civilian control of law enforcement.
And review boards that would have the power to fire people. One of
I
the items in on the number 5 of the 11 demands list was demand. The part about demanding the firing. What it's talking about is demanding not just that happened to the officer who unalived someone, but what about the person who trained him, right? What about the police chief? I'm saying our demands if we're getting in the streets about having justice for something that happened is to say there should be firings right up to the chain, right up the chain of command, and even into the mayor. That's what real demands and demanding real change would look like.
I agree in the sense that the people under your command, you're responsible for them, and being responsible for them in the classic
Yeah,
sense of
it's
the
going to be
term means
sorry. You know,
if they
you're the
mess up, it's
chief.
on you. Totally got that.
You're the chief. Maybe you tried hard, but sorry, them's the breaks. Your guy shot an unarmed guy for without good reason, and you got to go, and we're going to try another chief. Plenty of people
Right.
want to be chief, right?
It's true. Well, for me, if I'm going to be a chief, I'm going to make sure I got the right Indians. you know, right? I'm not.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's like I'm ex-military, right? If I can't trust the people around me, and if let's say we're setting up a perimeter to protect ourselves, and if I got two sorry soldiers, right, that might fall asleep, that's all of us. And if I live through that, if I'm in charge of them, that's me. That's all on me. And like you said, the people on the upper echelon, the brass part of the chain of command, should suffer some form of consequences. I would also like to caveat by saying we need to get rid of arrest quotas. Because I remember Charlie Kirk and a lot of people repeating that like 50% of the convictions are African American, but they're like this small population. But if you look at the actual variables, well, first of all, it's not 50%, it's 38%, which is still a high number. But Charlie Kirk, 50 sounds better and sounds more like inflated to make his argument more sensational, even though we all agree 38% is high enough. But what people are not saying is that 52% of overturned convictions are African American. Death row, 54% of people were exonerated from death row are African American. So where he has the conclusion that black people are susceptible to commit more crimes, which instills this fear and bigotry, my conclusion is you are more likely, if you're black, you're more likely to be arrested and convicted for a crime you didn't commit. So what you were talking about is good, but we got to get rid of arrest quotas. If the captain's like, you need to make 8 arrests, I don't care who, bring me 8 bodies. In Boston, where are they going to go? Are they going to go to Charlestown? Well, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, it's a big thing. It depends on the jurisdiction. It's been a big problem for New York for in particular. And NYPD, Adrian Schoolcraft was a famous NYPD officer who later kind of got forced out. This was going back a while back now, 20 years or so. He wore a secret. He was taping captains and stuff that were telling about these quotas. And when he kind of went out and talked about this, the NYPD started treating him like he was idol, and they were trying to like just make him seem crazy, and off that's a big thing. But yeah, I mean, criminologists have done the studies. Unsurprisingly, people commit crimes regardless of at similar rates regardless of their race.
Agreed.
People of different races commit crimes at similar rates. It has nothing to do with race. So when you see a scenario where you have a population, let's say the population is 20% black, 80% white, but the local jail in that jurisdiction is 80% black and 20% white, you have an obvious problem there. The if things were working properly, if the jurisdiction was 20% black and 80% white in the jail, you would see about 20% black and 80% white, because that's just what would make sense. So if you're seeing anything other than that, that comes into raising questions. And obviously, you don't even have to list examples of the issues that law enforcement does to the black community. That's just obvious.
Right. Yeah.
But what
Michael,
it tracks with is poverty.
yeah. Like Jacksonville is predominantly white, right? And that's a high crime rate. And that's, a lot of the people who are race baiting never mention those counties that are poor and white. And that supports Corey's point, which remains valid. In fact, I need to shut up and recognize a mic drop when I see it. Well done, Corey. I want to finish because actually at some point I got to go. I got to go get my kid. I got a kid. You've seen her.
Yeah.
White hair. She's
Yeah.
She's a Targaryen.
There you go.
She's right. If anyone's ever seen her, she looks like Queen Daenerys, and I'm pretty sure somewhere in this house are 3 dragons. I want to finish with the one that identifies close with my voting stance. My 2 biggest ones that trump everything are free speech and anti-war. So I wanted to finish with reject censorship, and I will make sure
That's
I
a big one.
include in the description 11amends.org and where they can find more of your material. But really highlighting these 11 demands. Demand number 7 is reject censorship. I would like to lead for the first 15 seconds by saying I believe in our right to be wrong. One, because one, you find out later you're not wrong after all, and two, I do not trust a governing body to determine to us what is correct and what is not, right? Everyone's upset about misinformation, that. And the biggest purveyors of misinformation are the ones that are saying we're your solution to this problem. And I reject that notion, and I reject censorship, and I'll end with that. There it is. There goes my little kitty cat. Let's go.
That's Sandy.
Sandy. Excellent.
So yeah, we were cat people.
Yes.
So
Sorry, I had to plug in my laptop.
It's okay.
the core problem always with censorship is who's going to do the censoring. You know, and when it becomes political, it just becomes a political tool. Both parties have done it or are doing it. You really, it needs due process. In most cases, it should only be applied to speech that is really illegal, that is really connected to an illegal act or to violence or something specific, and it should be through like a court process. Otherwise, don't censor.
Corey?
Yeah, I do agree. I'm pretty close to what you might call like a free speech absolutist. I know that term gets bastardized. I basically believe that if it's not illegal, then it's not the purpose of any government, or for that purpose, public utility, which it's not considered this, but I would consider YouTube to be a public utility, or any of these platforms to be a public utility in the same way that, you would, like have the same way a phone company can't decide, I don't like you, you don't get to have a phone. That's why we have these public utility laws, but that's why it exists right now in places like YouTube and with these social media places where they really should be treated more in that way, but they're not. But yeah, I yearn for the old days of the ACLU, where they were famous for not only standing up for the free speech of the civil rights movements, and whatnot, but also they defended the KKK,
For their right to protest. Yeah.
for their right to protest, for their right to speech. I don't dig this whole PC stuff. And I would also like to say, because this does get out there sometimes, I am a gay man. It's not like my main identity, but it is what I identify as. And I do think that there is a problem within that community over overtly PCing and the desire to police speech. It's not something that I align with. I do think that people, even if they have despicable views that I disagree with, do have the right to have their say, as long as it's not, violent speech per se. They're not threatening anything or anything like that. So yeah, I really just think that if being part of a collective, being part of a large group is key to we have to be able to say what we want to say to people, or else you're not going to make a genuine connection. Because
Right.
if you can't believe what somebody's saying, you're not going to like them, let alone be able to make a political movement with them.
Yeah, I'd also like to say that I'm not gay, but my husband is. So I enjoy that freedom for everybody. My husband is. Where does he get it from? So anyway, no, I'm gonna give our guy I'm gonna give Eric the mic in a minute, but I did want to say that it is my right to hate whoever I want. It is my right to hate whoever I want, as long as, like what he said, your hate is not a convincing, direct assertion to violence or someone's freedom of movement. Yeah, I am a free
Sure, yeah. I
speech.
mean, you can hate this person, they can hate you,
Yeah,
and as long as you stay on each side of the lines and just leave each other alone,
I
then who cares, right?
I hate clowns. And if you're a mime in the New York street, don't follow me, dude. I'm gonna give you a 3 piece and a soda. Don't follow me. you know. No, but I am a free speech absolutist in the terms of the First Amendment, which is there to protect you from government persecution. I'm a free speech enthusiast outside of that caveat in relation to the First Amendment. Like, I don't think someone should tell their boss to kiss their butt and think they should still have a job. Right? I don't think that if you go to a bar and you cause a whole bunch of ruckus that someone has to sit there and take that. They can ask you to leave. Right? So I'm an absolutist if we're talking in the classic sense of the term, because this is what we're talking about is government stuff anyway. So I totally get you. Eric?
Yeah, I mean, it's when we're talking about the public square, public areas, or in the modern area, in the modern era, places like YouTube, Twitter X, um, TikTok, and so forth that function now as the public square.
Hmm.
And we have this problem now where these places are where people communicate, where they speak publicly, that these public spaces are controlled by private actors, whether it's whether you want to view them as the big corporations or as the billionaires themselves. I think it's basically the same thing. So what needs to happen is, you need government, a government that is working in our interests in the 99% to step in to regulate how these corporations operate these areas. To say things like one of the things on the list of it is to not allow deletion and deplatforming unless there's a due process that's transparent, fair, and democratic. At minimum, right, we need to have that kind of regulation, on what is now a public square. And to go even further, really, the longer term way to really deal with it is to change the ownership and governance of these huge corporations that we all rely on to really live. And we need to get away from this model of, oh, well, it's just the billionaire with the biggest money or a group of them who get to make all the calls, make all the decisions. We have to democratize these big corporations. I mean, we have to democratize our government, but democracy is a big word in all this. It's called 11 Demands for Real Democracy because, right now we have a democracy of dollars. If you got
Right.
the most dollars, you get your way. We need a real democracy, one person, one vote. So if you're looking at an instance like YouTube, well, you could say, it's too big, too important to just leave in the hands of a few billionaires. We're going to first nationalize it and then make it into a public utility, and that kind of thing. And then we can go even a step further and say it's not going to be government run, it's going to be worker run. Turn it into a worker co-op model and say everyone who's an employee of YouTube gets one vote, and that decides who sits on the board, who makes the calls. Um, you can also have a role for the community that watches and uses YouTube, and maybe they can have a vote in some fashion on how it's run and how it operates. That's like the long-term fix. Professor Richard Wolff is someone that everyone should be familiar with and watch for these types of things. That's what he talks about. When he talks about socialism, that's what he means. He
Right.
means worker co-op, worker control, and have, the people, the average, the 99% actually control how things operate.
Right. Well, to me, YouTube ain't gonna be no utility because utilities we pay for. My electric bill, my gas bill, we pay for. Right. We don't pay for YouTube. In fact, a lot of us make money. It's the opposite way. With that being said, if there's a way they can swing it, I'm very interested to see what that looks like. Corey's
We
wheels
we
are
we
turning. He's
would,
got
yeah,
he's
no,
got
I
this
mean it's
idea. Hmm.
yeah, I mean I don't have like a full fleshed out idea which you would need, but as it stands right now with YouTube, we are the product.
Right.
The YouTube sustains based off of ads. If you had some sort of like public takeover of such a platform, that would be restructured where instead of us being the product for advertisers, it would be funded in a different way. I don't have the right answer for that today, but it could be shifted differently.
It's gonna be that'd
Take
be
a fraction of the money we spend on war, have
yeah.
it fund YouTube.
20%
Well,
sounds
sure.
like a good
Yeah.
number.
There you go.
20%. Everyone feeling that 20%.
And you could also have membership things and whatnot. These problems are actually quite solvable, but it's hard to imagine these kinds of solutions where our brains are like stewing in this corporate oligarchy narrative stew. It's like it's hard to imagine these kinds of real solutions because they don't talk about them on corporate media, right? That's this kind of thinking is like, oh, that's crazy talk.
Right. Yeah.
No,
No, definitely
doesn't have
is.
to be.
No, I totally agree. We are going to table that the form of the 11 demands because we hit people home, and we got to my favorite part: free speech and anti-war. Anyone who wants to be down with my cause, if you start from there, I could work with you. We got to be able to say what we have to say. Because again, like I said before, free speech is not popular speech. Popular speech doesn't need protection. And the whole censorship thing that happened during the Biden administration that everyone thought was an attack on the right wing, it wasn't. It was a right wing head fake to censor people like Eric. It was a right wing head fake to censor people like Jimmy Dore. It was a right wing head fake to censor people like Sabby Sabs because they were scared of our voices getting too big. They were scared of your voices saying, hey, we're the majority here. So the censorship came there because they could have censored Republicans anytime through that duration. Only through this political movement that started with Sanders and the people that jumped off Sanders but stayed with the movement, they're like, we have to shut that esh down as fast as we can. And when the Democrats were on board of that, now that Trump is president, Trump is now censorship on steroids. You're getting arrested for free speech. The woman who did the op-ed from Tufts University, really bright human being, arrested by armed people, armed agents, guns for free speech. So, and this is why I was like you said, the whole left-right thing is going to destroy us all if we don't find a way through it. It's going to eventually destroy us all anyway. Before I go, last good book you read, guys. Oh, are you suggesting that we read, Jason?
Well,
It's the last good
People read
book you
books.
read, you
I read a
dorks.
book. I read a book called Hidden Things, which is like a horror book about it's kind of like the traditional like haunted little boy thing. Like this girl becomes like this babysitter for this boy out in the cabin, and he draws all kinds of crazy stuff. And I don't
Nice.
know, it's okay. I've been trying to read more. I went to Barnes and Noble and bought a book. It's just
Old
who
school.
has the time, right?
Yes.
There is one
That's the best I got for you, man.
That's okay. That's
there
something.
is one I'll recommend because we had him on the Sabby Sabs show not too long ago, named Omar Zaza, and he
Mhm.
wrote a book called Terms of Servitude.
Terms of servitude. Yes.
Mhm.
And that is I can't claim to I read every word, but I took a good gander at it, and it's really good stuff. So I definitely recommend that one, Omar Zaza in Terms of Servitude,
Right.
and it touches on at its core it's a lot about Israel, Gaza, and all that, but it also touches on big tech and gets into a lot of these issues of of why things are the way they are and what can be done about it.
Braiding sweet grass, says Alan.
From the
Alan's
chat.
home. Yeah, from the chat. We got you. We see you. So mine is accept the message, shoot the messenger, Matt Taibbi. Sorry. Let's do that. And I'll zoom in on it sorry, I'm on camera too. It's called Hate Inc. It's how the up and down politics weaponizes the left and right against each other. And
Jason got books.
yeah, man. 365 days of optimism. I need that because I'm a hater. I'm a hater from New York City, and I hate on everybody. Corey, if you walked
It's
on water, if you walked on water, I would say it's because you can't swim. So I need positive people in my life. So Wendy
Dude, I'm
Jones.
from Boston. You think we're any different?
You remember that guy in the advertisement at the deli, the Yankees and the Red Sox fans? I swear to God, you're one of those guys. So her name is Wendy Jones. 365 Days of Optimism. Trust me, you'll all feel better about yourselves. Last question. Favorites for my sports people. Favorite sports movie. The first one that came to your mind as far as favorite sports movie.
Bull Durham.
Bull Durham. Let's go. You're awfully quiet there.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen a sports movie in years. I mean, way back when the Natural was pretty cool. And
My man, you guys are all elegant on me. Jeez. Well, the first
what was that
one.
one? If you build it, they will come, right?
Well, the first one.
Field of Dreams.
Yeah, Field of Dreams. We're all
That's good
all kinds of
stuff.
Costner, right? And Robert Redford. I like Remember the Titans. Denzel Washington. Surprising, a Disney movie. I really, from a nuanced sports movie, I really liked Any Given Sunday. What coaches go through with the players and this and that. Miracle, about the U.S. hockey team, that inspired the heck out of me. I mean, look, I could go Mighty Ducks and do. I mean, I can go my entire life just watching sports movies. Rocom, Jerry Maguire. That was a Rocom that we all kind of liked. I'm sweating my contract, Dukes. No, show you the money. Don't show you the money. Show me the money. So we're going to attach all the links to the descriptions, but I want you just to do it verbally for my audio people. If people want to get to know more about you guys, get to know more about the 11 demands, and what Eric's up to from a productional perspective. They want to be down with Eric T. They want to be down with Corey. What's up? Go. The floor is yours.
Well, the first thing is to, of course, be watching Sabby Sabs, the show that kind of brings all this together, I think.
Yes.
She's Sundays at 5, Tuesdays at 7, Thursdays at 8. So, of course, you want to be watching that. And for 11 demands, really easy to find, 11demands.org. If you type 11 demands, spell it out 11s, spell it out 11, it should come up in your browser one way or another.
Yes. Yes. And make sure you check your website too. Okay. Perfect. All right, guys. So these guys might love you, but I don't love any of you guys. In fact, I can't stand any of you guys. In fact, we're out of here. So for all of you at home, for all of you on your iPads or iPhones or Droids, if that still exists, for all of you who have a desktop who runs the world, Eric knows, I know, because it's old school, baby. Old school. I am Jason DeBeas. This is Eric and Corey. This is the Option Podcast, episode 259. You guys stay with me. I'm going to hit my music, but for now, we are out of here. Come check out the Option Podcast on optionvb.com. It's also available on iTunes and Spotify and on YouTube under the NY Varsity Sports handle. You're going to love what you hear.